What is going on, everyone? The New York Jets just embarrassed the Houston Texans 21-13. I've come to the conclusion, guys, that this Houston Texan offensive line is going to be the reasons why we are not in the conversations of the contenders of the NFL, because they're going to lose you games. This Houston Texan offensive line cannot get you far in the playoffs. In terms of pass protection, this O-line is one of the worst units in the NFL. Let's look at the pressure rates in the past 3 weeks. In week 7, against the Green Bay Packers, CJ Stroud was pressured on 51.7% of his dropbacks. Last week, against the Indianapolis Colts, CJ Stroud was pressured on 46.2% of his dropbacks. And last night against the New York Jets, CJ Stroud was pressured on 47.8% of his dropbacks. How do you want a quarterback to thrive in that? This offensive line is now starting to affect CJ Stroud. The alarm should start ringing all over NRG. Our quarterback does not trust his offensive line, and you can see it on the field. It doesn't take a genius to know that CJ Stroud's internal clock is ringing as soon as he gets the ball, because he knows the people in front of him cannot protect him. Bobby Slowick, you have a huge part to blame in this also. You don't scheme like you have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. You run a stupid 2nd and 7 where you have Joe Mixon as the quarterback and CJ Stroud is the primary receiver on that play. Look, if it works, we are talking about how gutsy it was, but it didn't work. You're in the red zone. In the past 3 games, the Houston Texans have yet to score 7 in the second half. This entire offense is a problem. This entire offense is disappointing, and a change needs to be made. Before we get into it, guys, this episode was brought to you and powered by BetUS. I'm sorry if I go on a rant, but they're giving you a 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. On your second and third, it's a 125% bonus with promo code YouTube150. Quick 24-hour payouts, 24-hour customer service, guys. BetUS, they are fantastic where the game begins. Chris Strausser needs to be fired. He should have been fired 3 weeks ago. He should have been fired when you found out he's never coached in this system before. Bobby Slowick, there needs to be a change in terms of play calling. Will it happen? I don't know. I doubt it does. Now, this is where in a couple of minutes we're going to have a conversation about DeMeco Ryans, but it is clear that Bobby Slowick cannot scheme up a game plan. It is clear that he cannot adjust in the second half. Like I just said, you haven't scored 7 in the second half in the past 3 games. There's no more excuses. You are what you are. Bobby Slowick, guys, in the offseason was getting head coach interviews, and I was saying, I don't want to see Bobby go. A big part of CJ Stroud's development is Bobby Slowick. And they did do that, right? They not only brought back Bobby Slowick, but they brought back Gerard Johnson. And I think Gerard Johnson needs more control in this offense. I'm almost inclined to say, let him be the one calling plays. Harley has brought up Bob Lazor, who is there, who has been an offensive coordinator before. A change needs to be made. We saw what one change did last week. Jared Patterson comes in. This Houston Texan offense looks good. This Houston Texan offense puts up 7. It's not just Kenyon Green, guys. It's the entire offensive line. Laramie Tunsil has played horrible. False starts almost every other week. Kenyon Green, fortunately, man, I don't think there's a future for Kenyon Green on this Houston Texans team. Juice Scruggs, who you traded up for in the second round, hasn't played good all year. Shaq Mason, who you traded for from New England, from Tampa Bay, because he's been in the playoffs, he's been in the Super Bowl, he knows what it's like to be around a winning culture. Shaq Mason should be one of the leaders on your offense, on your offensive line, and I haven't seen that since he's been here. And to be honest with you, I don't think Shaq Mason is going to be playing football next year. Titus Howard was getting worked by Hassan Reddick last night. This whole offensive line needs to be thrown away. You might need 3 new interior offensive linemen next season, ladies and gentlemen. That's how real and that's how dire this situation is. Because I don't want this man behind me losing faith in himself, in his offensive line. It's already happening. You don't want the development of this man behind me hindering because of this offensive line. And here's the thing. The Texans did their job trying to invest into it. We cannot talk about the 2 firsts for Lammy because that's Bill O'Brien. But Nick gave him a 3-year contract. He's one of the highest paid tackles in the NFL. A first on Kenyon, a trade up and a 2nd round pick on Juice Scruggs, a 3-year contract and a 7th round pick for Shaq Mason, a 3-year contract for Titus Howard, a 2nd round pick just this draft in Blake Fisher. The Houston Texans invested into their offensive line, ladies and gentlemen. This unit just sucks, which is why I say it can't get better. This is what you have. Outside of a firing of the O-line coach and, maybe some benchings here or there, this is what you have. Unless Nick Caserio goes on the trade deadline and gets an offensive lineman. Now, I know that's rare, but Minnesota just did that, getting Cam Robinson as their left tackle from Jacksonville. The New York Jets punched you in the mouth. The New York Jets just showed on primetime there's a recipe to beat the Houston Texans. Because this defense is elite, ladies and gentlemen. It is. Pressure this offensive line as much as you can. Beat them up, and they're going to fold. C.J. Stroud was sacked 8 times last night. He has now been thrown on the ground 30 times. He's been sacked 30. I was talking to my boy Caleb, and, felt like this was a little premature when he said this. But, he's going to say, what happens around contract time if the, problem doesn't get fixed and the offensive line is still horrible. I don't want to have that conversation just yet, but this is a huge issue, ladies and gentlemen, a giant issue, and the Houston Texans need to do something. Switching to our head coach, DeMeco Ryans. I was talking to my co-host on the Twin Toros podcast, Nick Stevenson, and he brought this up. The honeymoon is over with DeMeco Ryans and C.J. Stroud. When can we start criticism those two? I said it's really hard to criticize C.J. Stroud with this offensive line. I have a stat for you guys. The 3 games where C.J. Stroud was under pressure the most were in the last 3 weeks. That's how glaring this problem is, which is why I believe you can throw some criticism to DeMeco Ryans, because it feels like they have downplayed how bad the offensive line really is, how bad the play calling, the offense itself really is. Just a couple of weeks ago, Landry Locker talked about potentially making some changes, and DeMeco said all options are on the table. And then the very next day, we heard DeMeco say, everyone has bad plays. Everyone has bad games. With the Kenyon Green situation, who was benched last week against Indianapolis, I for sure thought we were going to see Kendrick Green against the New York Jets. On the H-Town Rundown, shout out to AD, shout out to Big Sarge, he said that he got a text earlier during the week saying Kenyon was benched. And then just a couple of days before the game, Kenyon was back in the lineup. How does that happen? How can you let that happen? Now, I understand, you want to fight for you guys. You want to defend your guys. I'm the exact same way. Get mad at me before you get mad at my boys. But when there is a problem and you have a franchise quarterback back there, I mean, you could let Kenyon Green, this entire offensive line, start the rest of the year if you have a Joe Flacco or a absolute nobody back there. But when you have a young quarterback who you believe can get you into the playoffs, can get you into an opportunity to fight for the Lombardi Trophy, the alarms in the back of your head need to start sounding. We can't have C.J. Stroud under this amount of pressure. A change has to be made, guys. If a change is not made, if no one gets benched, and we don't hear anything about Bobby Slowick taking some plays back, Gerard Johnson taking a step forward, or we don't see a trade in the next 10 days, 4 days. I'm sorry, the trade deadline is November 5th. I'm gonna be very upset. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we were supposed to preview the game. Break down the game, and we'll probably do that tomorrow. But right now, the glaring hole is the offensive line. It's going to keep this Texans team from winning games. It's going to keep this Texans team from reaching heights that they've never reached before. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. For more Houston Texans content, just feel free to follow me. This episode is brought to you and powered by BetUS. Once again, they're giving you a 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. On your second and third, it's a 125% bonus. Promo code YouTube 150, ladies and gentlemen. Have a safe weekend. Have a real blessed rest of your day.